West Papuans say that West Papua is a piece of heaven that's fallen to earth. And from what I've seen in the 10 years that I've worked there, they're right. West Papua is the epicenter of global marine biodiversity, home to more species of fish and coral than anywhere else in the world. It is also the home of one of the world's largest intact rainforests, much of which is completely unexplored, and the world's largest mangrove forest, a critical blue carbon buffer to climate change. Ridge to reef, West Papua is the vital crown jewel of biodiversity. New species are found regularly throughout this vastly rich center of life on Earth. But what sets West Papua apart even more are its cultures. People first arrived in West Papua in canoes more than 1,000 years ago. Clans found homes from the coast to the depths of the rainforest. Completely dependent upon and intimately tied to their ecosystems, they developed sophisticated systems of traditional conservation on both land and sea that mirror every type of modern-day conservation measure in the playbook, from fishing gear restrictions to closed areas. Paired with recognized exclusive community ownership of these resources, and thus the ability to enforce their rules, these peoples lived sustainably for 1,000 years. Encroachment of the modern world was inevitable. However, even in modern times, West Papuans have maintained significant power over their resources and an understanding of the importance of conservation, rooted in eons of sustainable practice. But despite this, in the modern world of big business and shrinking resources, West Papua is in the midst of an intense battle for its future. A race to turn ancient traditions into modern law to protect West Papua's vast riches before it's too late. Working in close collaboration with Conservation International and the government, my partner Sean Heinrichs and I have had the honor to help cement new commitments to conservation by amplifying West Papuans' own traditional wisdom. We recorded their stories, interviewing everyone from local fishermen to traditional leaders, small farmers to the governor himself, and then brought their stories back to them in grand-scale events. And we wish you could have felt the energy in the crowds as 5,000 faces glowed in the light of the 2-story tall screen. We wish you could have felt the resolve in the meeting rooms as local leaders from across the province signed the petition to protect their lands. We wish you could have felt the surge of pride as hundreds of fists flew into the air when Edo Kondologet, Papua's most famous singer, leaned forward into the climax of his song, Aku Papua, I Am Papua. The crowd screamed the lyrics into the night, proclaiming their heritage, declaring their solidarity in the name of conservation. In 2019, in the aftermath of this widespread public demonstration of commitment, the West Papuan and Indonesian governments passed a monumental new law, Provinsi Konservasi, or the Conservation Province, establishing massive conservation targets, 70% of the rainforest and 50% of all reefs and mangroves, while also mandating that all industry be sustainable. This visionary legislation is a blueprint for the future. And in a time when the link between our own health and that of our natural world has never been more clear, I hope that you will all join us in celebrating Indonesia in its bold stand for a sustainable future.
One of the things I really appreciate and value about your work, John, is that you highlight that it's so important to not overlook the value of traditional knowledge. Can you share with us what it's like as an outsider to go into these communities and really earn the trust to learn the stories that embody the conservation ethos?
Oh yeah, thanks, Tasha. Well, so this much is easy. You have to go in and you have to treat people as people. You have to pay them respect. And so I often go in. I'll have long conversations with people. We'll sit. I drink a lot of tea. Sit and talk to them, and better yet, share a meal, meet their families, hang out, maybe even stay at their house. So this is kind of the basis of trust. But then when you do ask somebody to actually get on film and you record their stories, I have to continually remind myself this is an incredible honor to have them share a story with me. So I have to repay that honor by honoring their story, and both while I'm in the field and most specifically when I get back to the studio to edit this story. making sure that I'm not changing their meaning. I'm really listening to exactly what they said, and even though I have to shorten this thing and put it into a film, that I am extracting the spirit of that of their story, and I'm not changing what they meant, even in a subtle way. So that's part of it, and then finally, this is a long process. So I've been going back to Indonesia for 10 years, meeting the same people over and over again. We bring our films back there so they actually see what we're doing, how we're treating their stories, the respect that we're paying to their stories. And I knew that I had entered a new phase of trust in these communities when, after this last film that we showed, Provinsi Conservasi, I met with the head of the Mayan tribes, the traditional leader of the Mayan tribes, and I went to shake his hands. I'd met him about 5 or 6 times before, went to shake his hand, and instead of that, he pulled me into a great big bear hug.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's really um, tangible. I can feel the experience that you have, the trust that you've built, and it comes through in the work 100%. I know it's also important for you to bring these stories outside of the communities and into an outside audience, especially the younger generation. When you do that, what message do you hope to share?
Well, so I think the main thing that we need to understand, and what I said in the film, has never been more clear that our health and the health of our environment are intricately tied together. And we need to understand that we're all in this together, right? This is something that affects everybody, and we need to listen to each other. We need to learn from each other. So if there's anything that I can do to bring these stories forward, it's to encourage that bridge, that we are working together on these big issues, and we're listening to each other and really learning from each other. And specifically when it comes to people that are close to nature, live close to nature, I think most people would agree that we're heading down a very dangerous path in terms of environment, and that we all want to achieve sustainability. So we should obviously be listening to these communities that have lived sustainably for literally 1,000 years.
Well, thank you so much. What you're doing is really restoring a lot of value for people outside to understand this traditional knowledge. And I know you've had a lot of successes. I'm sure a lot of people at home would like to continue to learn more about you and about the efforts that you're leading. So I know that you have agreed to go on your Twitter and your Instagram and continue to answer questions and comments. So let people find you there. And thank you so much for joining us, John.